It's been a sad, bad, shoddy week at Westminster. The sex scandal claimed its first scalp in Michael Fallon, who's resigned as Defence Secretary. Earlier this week, Labour activist Bex Bailey said she was raped at 19, but claimed she was told to hush it up by party officials as it would damage her career. A list of various allegations against MPs is doing the rounds online. An avalanche of women claim to have been affected. Apparently this all adds up to the mass sexual persecution of women at the heart of our democracy. But is that really how it is? Let me be clear. No sexual predator should ever be given cover. Rape and sexual abuse are violent crimes that should be dealt with by the police. But should Michael Fallon lose his job because he touched someone's knee 15 years ago? It's vital to make the distinction between sexual abuse and inappropriate behaviour. Banter, a crude joke, a touch of the knee is not sexual assault. Suggesting it is turns women into victims and it disempowers us. Let's teach women to take back the power, to stand up to the idiots in the office, to say loudly and clearly if they're not OK with something. Because only then will it stop.
Carole, first of all, I agree with you that sexual assault is very serious and that any culture of predatory behaviour is completely inappropriate and potentially criminal and has no place in the heart of democracy, whether it's men or women who are perpetrating that behaviour. But there seems to be, as always in these cases, a pattern where the majority of people accused of this kind of behaviour are men and the majority of victims, apparently, are women, and a lot of these allegations aren't substantiated yet. The problem I have with some of the rhetoric, and please tell me if I'm wrong in putting any of this on you, is that this expectation that it's up to women to be really strong and resilient and resist this kind of behaviour. And while I think it's great if women can be really strong and resilient, and the idea of somebody who's vulnerable being affected by this is horrific, equality is not when women are allowed to be strong enough to resist male advances. Equality is when a woman can be weak or vulnerable and she doesn't get subject to this kind of behaviour. And so that's what I've been really uncomfortable with, the idea that as long as women are tough and bat this away or speak out straight away, then everything is fine. And actually the onus is on men who are behaving this way. That's where it belongs.
Of course it is. I mean, of course men shouldn't do it. In a perfect world, men wouldn't do this, but they do. And I just think women in any arena, you don't have to be strong to say to a guy, don't do that. You know, if a guy is coming on to you, guys are always going to come on to women. It's going to happen.
I would dispute that, though. You just said you don't have to be strong to say to a guy, don't do that.
Well, I think you don't.
If you're a junior girl in an office or wherever workplace, and you have a senior boss that is a man who's making you feel uncomfortable, if you're like what we are, Carole, we are confident individuals, and I'm sure that we would take it very lightly saying, get off. If you're somebody who's just entered your career, you're quite shy as a person and there's different personalities, it actually is quite a courageous and brave thing to say to your boss, who is your senior, please don't do that. No, Carole, so my point is, people are different, and as a woman, certainly as a young girl and someone who's shyer than perhaps that we are, or maybe less confident or whatever, it is a big deal to have the bravery to say, stop that, and we need to recognise that.
The kind of women you're talking about, the kind of women who have no power or in positions where they have no power, they have an HR department, they can go to that. The people
Not always.
Well, the people we're talking about this week are women in Westminster. You've got to be pretty tough to get to Westminster.
Somebody who works in Westminster,
yeah.
Let's be clear, it's not Sexminster.
Exactly.
I mean, the overall people do behave, and when you sign up to public life, you have to sign up to the Nolan principles of public life, which is selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership.
Yep.
And these scandals, there's nothing new about it. I mean, you have to go back to the Profumo scandal that brought down a government. But there, the individual actually lied to Parliament. Mm-hmm. Then you look at the 1990s, and the Conservative Party then, the sleaze that was one thing after another, and horrific, horrible stories that brought down that government. And now we've got this. And the expenses scandal that took place in 2009, if you remember that, every single day. I mean, they literally, it was like dripping it out one by one.
There's no comparison between that and what's happening.
So what is happening now is this has now come out, and the list, and again, it's cross-party. This is not something that's just Conservative, or it's Conservative, Labour, Liberal. Everyone is involved in this, and it should not be allowed or tolerated at all.
Can I say, it strikes me that there's certainly, I was, for one, surprised, though I have been both a victim of sexual assault and in a Daily Mail sting, accused of something during the election campaign. I've been on both sides of this debate, and it strikes me there certainly is. I was surprised by the extent of the problem that we quite evidently have. On the other hand, pragmatically, I'm not so sure that there is a pragmatic solution to this apart from what Carole's suggesting, even though I agree with you, Afua, it's not comfortable to hear that, and I would side with you on my emotions around what Carole's suggesting. And the reason I'm suggesting there's no other pragmatic solution is that for the vast majority of these cases, there's simply, in a court of law, there isn't that standard of evidence that can withstand the principle innocent until proven guilty. And with that in mind, the only other solution, because we don't have the evidence available for the vast majority of these cases, is for education, training, and that kind of empowerment to say to women, you must feel like you can say no, because the problem, and it's a problem, I don't think this is a comfortable thing for me to say, it is a problem that we've got a kind of culture that expects somebody in a position that isn't of power to actually speak up and say no, but short of having concrete evidence or video cameras, it is the only pragmatic solution.
And what's happening now is the names of people are being circulated, not just in this country, but around the world. The people on that list are everywhere now. And these are people, 16 of the names on that list are people who are in consensual relationships. There are other people on that list who are having affairs, legitimately having affairs. But these people are being damned to hell and back without any form of redress.
Part of the problem with the list is that victims, alleged victims, are being outed without their consent as well. So I think we can all agree the list is very problematic. The
people you're talking about have spoken out.
No, there are many people named on that list who said they had no intention of speaking publicly about this and they don't want to. So they've been violated by
the people who've compiled the list. And that's the other thing. It's anonymous. We don't know exactly who's compiled this list either.
Well, look, I would certainly not. I was a child. I was abused. I would certainly not want to name who I'm speaking of, and I wouldn't want somebody to take that right away from me. That without my permission.
That's one of the difficulties, isn't it? It is a context where people still don't feel sometimes that they can speak out. 80% of sexual assaults and rapes are not reported to police. It's estimated because, as a victim, you know that the consequences of reporting it are that you might have to give evidence. There will be consequences. It will be associated with your name. In this case, people haven't been kept anonymous. I just quickly want to pick up on what Majid was saying about the cultural change, because I think that is really important. And actually, I've got a more light-hearted, well, you could argue that it's light-hearted image I wanted to show you of David Davis, the Brexit secretary. Not that long ago. And even though I'm not in any way suggesting that David Davis has been implicated in any sexual assault, there's no allegation I'm aware of against him.
You think that's wrong? There's something wrong with
I think it's part of the culture where women's bodies are commodified within Westminster. That is problematic.
How can you say women's bodies are commodified? It's being told to get close to the woman for the photograph.
Yes, that is problematic. And they've got his name.
But it's people who say stuff like that really makes me cross, because what you're doing is you're ignoring the real sexual assault. Yes, you are. You're conflating that with what happened to Bex Bailey.
Perhaps here's an example we can all agree on. So Bex Bailey, what she said, let's listen to it.
I was seriously sexually assaulted at a Labour Party event by, it wasn't an MP, but someone who was more senior to me. It took me a while. To summon up the courage to tell anyone in the party, but when I did, I told a senior member of staff who told me or it was suggested to me that I not report it.
So, it's got to be said at this stage, the Labour Party have issued a statement about those allegations. They've said the Labour Party takes these allegations extremely seriously. We would strongly recommend that the police investigate the allegations of criminal actions that Bex Bailey has made. Labour will also launch an independent investigation into claims that a party employee acted improperly over these 2011 allegations. But it is a good example to demonstrate the culture change that needs to happen, because if these allegations are true, Bex Bailey should never have been told not to take it forward.
But also, there's stories in the paper today that there are more allegations being made by people in the Labour Party, girls just like Bex Bailey, which are far more serious than the kind of stuff that Michael Fallon has resigned about. I just spoke to Katie Perriot today, the former Director of Communications in Downing Street, and she said, we're all sitting here waiting for an announcement of what Michael Fallon has actually done, because there has to be something more than this.
He said when he resigned that it was also
because
said
he had behaved improperly,
he couldn't rule out that there might be other...
He said inappropriately.
But the point is, it's not just this one incident.
Exactly.
And not just one incident. It implies there are other things that have happened that he has not said. Because his very words are, other things.
And
also he linked it, the other important thing is he linked it to the armed forces. And it's very important. The Secretary of State for Defence, you are basically representing the armed forces. And they said, we've had this situation with the submarines. And you know, there are certain rules, and you cannot have relationships, and there were relationships involving officers, and people have been suspended. People will probably have to leave the Navy as a result of it. I mean, my father was in the Indian Army, and I remember he took a very important posting, and the reason he was posted is the officer before that, a senior general, had misbehaved in this manner, and it was just not accepted. And immediately he was, and my father had to go and clean up the whole situation. So this is not tolerated in any area. And also, there must be the openness. I mean, I talked about the Nolan principle. Part of it is openness. People must have the ability, the confidence to speak out.
But don't you think there's a sense of panic at the moment? Don't you think there's a sense of panic, and it's all moving too quickly? And there's a danger that Theresa May is going to do something and try and make it better, and just do it too quickly when actually there is no need to. This kind of behaviour can be stamped out by women themselves, and you don't have to be strong to tell a bloke to get his hand off your knee.
Women's responsibility to stamp this out.
But it isn't. But you're responsible for yourself, surely, Afua.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, I would just make my final point, which is we need to be careful that everything's not conflated together, because talking about a rape is really serious.
Yes, absolutely.
And we need to make sure that actually, so if I think about the workplace, I like banter.
Yes,
I love banter. If someone oversteps the line, I'm confident enough to tell them no, and I would hope that they would do the same with me. And I think that we've got to be careful that we're separating serious, you know, and real and genuine harassment and assault from things that other people may be comfortable with. Because for me, sexual harassment is very simple. If someone's doing something to you that you're not comfortable with, that is a problem, and there needs to be mechanisms and frameworks to report that if you so need to.
So we